welcome. This is budget workshop number 3. First item on the agenda is pledge allegiance. Please rise. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Item 2, public comment. Anybody from the public like to make a comment? Public comment going twice. Public comment 3 times. Public comment is closed. Yes, sir. All right, we'll do introductions real quick. Chris Champagne, board chair. I'll go over to my left.
Stefan Bohuniak, board secretary.
James Garofalo, board member.
Kristen Harling, board member.
Shannon Levy, board member.
Dr. Susan Compton, superintendent.
Leanne Doherty, board clerk.
Salvatore Young, chief business manager.
Lori Nespoli, board member.
Ed Stramello, board member.
All right, item 3, discussion and possible action, the Seymour Board of Ed budget. We have some documents in front of us. I don't know, Dr. Compton, Sal, who's gonna
Yeah,
walk
I'd like
us
to
through this?
go ahead and address the budget. For those that are listening tonight, we're trying to be as open as we can. We've made sure that each of these meetings, this is the 3rd working session that has been broadcasted, so that everybody has a clear understanding of what we're doing. We're trying to be very open about everything, total expenses, what we're doing, and where we're at. For many of these Board of Ed members have had many years of experience in dealing with the budget, and this is always a very difficult process. And I would just like to start out tonight by looking at the summary of what I've reviewed again this past week and weekend. I want to start, first of all, by saying thank you again to all the work that's went into this. Our Board of Ed spends a lot of time going through all of this, the notebooks that we have prepared, plus also things that have been sent electronically, as well as their building administrators and board office and whatever, as well as Mr. Bucci and myself. This is not an easy process. We are in tough times right now, and there are a lot of school districts that are facing the same issues that we are. And just very quickly, we know just meeting contractual cost and what we're obligated to give. We've discussed that in these past previous workshops. Another area is the increased cost in special education, increased cost in transportation, both in district and out of district. We're dealing, again, just with ongoing costs, with a lot of things going up. And first of all, just looking at what we currently have in place right now, and this is important for everybody out there that's listening to what I have to say. Folks, we can't go any lower than what we're currently at. I will tell you that if we don't add anything, just to maintain where we are, meet contractual obligations, meet everything that is in our budget, it is at 4%, a 3.95, something like that, right, Mr. Bucci? It's very close to 4%. And when going through and looking at everything, the Board of Education, all members also ask us to prepare a worksheet, which Mr. Bucci did that as well. And in regards, and I'll let him address further comments, but right now I would just like to mention all of the things that our principals and central office administrators had put down. Their list from a needs assessment is been given out to you tonight. It's a nice spreadsheet. It talks about the salaries, and it also includes exactly the benefits cost. So it's one of the things that you had requested at the last meeting, and I think it's very important that everybody see this, probably later. I don't know, it's just something, if you have a question or whatever about these areas in regards of the salaries and just what's on here. I think sometimes people don't understand the expenses when it comes to personnel. So anyhow, this is the spreadsheet that you've requested, and I think it's very important so you can see. And these numbers are very close. If you were gonna hire a person for this position, pretty much, Mr. Bucci and I try to be very reasonable about if we were hiring somebody, what I think budget-wise and where they would fall on the scale. So for example, just looking at instructional coaches, what their cost, a salary would be at least $84,000. A lot of people that would be applying for instructional coaches as well with lots of years of experience. Our people are on top step, and that's over $100,000. I think an area too that people are not realizing that since 2017, when the first budget, when I've reviewed the 2017-18 budget, it was many years ago, and you look then at the cost of contractual obligations compared to now. And this is everywhere because the cost of inflation, the cost of living, when you look at what's in these agreements and what is worked out. So another area I just want to bring to your attention, what would be the cost of a social worker? And we estimated around $74,672. Another area, what would be the cost of a full-time ELA coordinator? And that would be around probably, when you get various certifications, usually it's a 6-year added. Sometimes it's just a master's, but most of the time it's a 6-year added. It's around $99,000. So just looking over this, there's something I do want to bring to your attention as well. What would be the cost of an assistant principal down as a part-time? Basically, if you were hiring back another full-time assistant principal, we also have the .5 here. But if you were hiring one now, to start for right now would be $172,790 plus insurance. And this is in the range of what administrators get paid. So when you look at that, I want to just bring your attention to why am I taking the time to mention this? We went through last year as we started into this fall, and we didn't replace a third administrator at the high school. Here's what we did do. That particular position was a .5 assistant principal and also involved being the athletic director. So when you look into the exact monies, the cost now of our current athletic director, which is a teacher/athletic director, and the reason that can be is because that position's not in the administrator's union. So that amount is currently $27,000. The other thing that we added as we went into the fall, and I want to make it very clear, that we also, later in the fall, and you graciously accepted my proposal, and I appreciate it deeply, with adding a coordinator that was in the guidance department to be able to do observations, okay? Because that was another line of responsibilities. When you get in your cutting positions and there's changes of job responsibilities, who's picking all this up? You're going from 3 people to 2 people. So what this basically involved, we tried to think out of the box, and what came up with, this person can do observations, can't do the final evaluation, and that was a amount of $3,280. Now, there was a lot of talk about why on earth did we recommend these attendance tardy officers? We call them tardy officers, attendance officers, whatever we want to call them. These were 5 teachers with 092 who totally focused on tardies, absenteeism, and also after-school suspension, whatever. I did send you the data. It's also in the handout. And I think you will be very pleased. It's a handout that's got the Appendix E positions. And if you will go, technically, it's in this handout, and it shows just a summation. Well, here's what, technically, it's in the email that I did send, but it's also in regards with the survey. I do have copies of that. I will share with some of you. I did send it out. The survey proved that it's made a big difference in the amount of how the tardies were cut down. I know that was one of the requests, Mr. Garofalo, that you wanted to see, and I think it's important that we share that, the data, and just looking at the data. So I'll get off that. It was a good presentation, and it's there. So I think it's important to just see, this was $10,000, each teacher was paid $2,000. So that was a total of 10. So instead of having the full cost, you can never replace a person, trust me, and it didn't really happen at Seymour High School. But we did what I would call Plan B. You make do with what you have. And Mr. Freud and Mr. Lucky have worked very hard and diligently to make it work. And I can tell you the total amount that was spent was $40,280 in place of an administrative position that would have been around $186,000. So when people keep hearing, what on earth was Dr. Compton up there asking this and asking that, and what was she trying to tell us? That's what we came up with. And some people may say, why did you do that? Well, to be very honest with you and very upfront and to the public, they have a right to file a grievance. With the union contract, that was something that we worked through, but we met with both attorneys, didn't meet with the attorneys through email and phone calls. We got it worked out because it's job responsibilities and duties. That's why I came back with the plan about evaluations. We also went to where Mrs. Feige was assigned the language English department to do evaluations, because that's what the third assistant principal did. We also worked with special education, with the teachers, and that was assigned to Dr. Boyle. Mr. Freud picked up some additional 3 PE people, whatever. So I'm just summarizing and getting to the point. This is what we went through. This is the process, because some people kept saying, why is she coming back and asking for this or that? And that was what was included in there. And I think people need to know the amounts. So I want to wrap that up. I do want to tell you what's in this packet, your handout. The Appendix E positions, actually now it's called Appendix D. We've listed exactly who is getting what based upon their contractual agreement. So that's the first 2 pages. The next part of the handout is looking at what is the actual teacher salary schedule for 24-25, and what are you obligated to pay, and you all know this is good or better than myself. That's all listed. I do want everybody to know that it's a good thing, but it's an expensive thing. We have 50%, at least 48 to 50% of our teachers are on the highest step. That's a good thing because it didn't leave Seymour. Is it expensive? Yes, but that's, you pay your teachers well, and that's what we need to do. So I just want to bring that emphasis. What will a salary be next year for a teacher that is step 14? It's $104,000, $986. The other thing I want to emphasize is coordinators or positions. That's also listed, and when I keep saying this 3280, that was compensated as a coordinator. The next page is with your school nurses with contracts.
I'm sorry, sorry.
Yeah.
3280, what is that?
That-
What does that refer to?
That is that specific stipend amount, coordinator amount that the director or the guidance, the counselor is getting for doing observations.
I'm sorry, I did not think that the guidance coordinator did observations. I thought that that was made a guidance coordinator for purposes of coordinating guidance and coming in and working over the summer. I didn't think that had anything to do with observations of classrooms.
The only thing, not classrooms, no way, no,
Oh.
only in the counseling department.
Oh, okay.
Yes, oh,
Okay.
no, we would
Okay.
not do that. Thank you for, I'm
Okay.
glad we got that clarified. That's a great question, Ms. Harmley. The other thing on wage schedule for nurses is called Appendix A wage schedule. You do pay stipends for your head nurse and your high school nurse, based upon the high school nurse has to do a lot of things pertaining to athletics, a lot of physicals that they have to follow up and enter the data into, okay? Very quickly, then administrator salaries, another stipend is a doctoral stipend if you have an administrator with a doctoral stipend. The other thing you wanted to know was with the grant coordinator. And Mr. Lucky did a nice summation here of exactly what grants were purchased, not purchased, what grants were received. And out of that, he actually definitely paid for the $10,000 amount that we would like to put in this budget again as a separate line item for the grant coordinator position. Totally, you can see the amount, it exceeded above and beyond. There was also money that was dedicated actually in the math grant for middle school and high school for administration cost, a small percentage. So read that little Cliff Note version, and that shows you that has been a good position year by year. This past year has been successful and it paid for itself. So that's something else you asked for, and I think that was a good request. Stipends. When it comes to website maintenance, this is Derek Martin, and that also shows that stipend. And then there's a small little Facebook stipend. And if there is currently an in-school suspension facilitator agreement, that's something you'll have to decide if you want to do that again. And that was brought about by the middle school. The other thing that is included in here, again, is just a copy of the athletic director's roles and what that person does. And then the assistant athletic director, which has been the same amount for several years. Okay? So that did not increase, and it remained the same. Okay? So that was that handout. So the alternative education proposal, Mr. Stamello, you weren't present at the last meeting, so I wanted to make sure you had that handout, and also Kristen. I thought our administration did a good job with this. A lot of it's philosophy, as Kristen Bruno looked through it very quickly and saw that, but it's a start. So that part is what it is. Just to wrap up, let's talk about then what's my summary of all of this. When you look down at the needs assessment that people had requested, it would be wonderful if we could provide this. But we're currently in a situation that we do not have, without getting into a high percentage, to be able to hire literacy coaches and additional social workers and all of that, unless that's what you decide. But I just kind of want to just sum it up with this is how I think we can make this work. In the memo, I am recommending, because you had asked me to present what's my recommendation, then as you as a board make the final decision. I think we should go in and ask for 4.5%. It's for 3 permanent building subs, and also 1 classroom teacher, which would actually be at the middle school, and that's totally based upon the enrollment, because they're going to have more kids. They're basically at 18, and we're assuming there will be at least 5 more that would enter during the summer. This past summer, we had over 20 kids. So we came back to you and said, we need another teacher. We hired a math teacher. That person finally got here in the fall. So what are we going to do with the staff that we have? How can we use them in a way that could possibly fill some gaps? Some of you might not like this philosophy, but it's done in many places. First of all, here we consider our special education teachers district, because if there's one that needs to go to another school, whatever, they do have their home-based areas, okay? Social workers, psychologists, and counselors, consider them all district level. Speech language pathologists, district level. We've already worked that out this past year when we met. You did increase to a 0.5 speech pathologist last year. This is in the budget, right, Mr. Bucci? For next year, 4.5 speech language pathologists. So that was something else that was added. We did add a preschool teacher, which was crucial to our program. Instead of having 2, we went to 3. This is just flat out necessity, people. It's not inventing something that we're asking for, something that's not needed. The other thing is language arts consultants. We have 2. We have basically one functioning in a full-time position that can also service Bungie Elementary with professional development and doing the job of making sure with their new literacy program that it is being fully implemented, and also assisting. We have our other person who is doing a 0.5 language arts and also a 0.5 with ELL. Right now, the numbers that we have, we don't project an increase of having 20 kids in a room at this point that would require. But you saw the foreign language, you saw, not foreign language, but you saw the different areas of different kids of different languages. So I can't totally say what August or September will bring. So just to wrap it up, special education inclusion facilitators, we have 2. So in the end, I'm saying based upon the needs, I think we can start an alternative school program and utilize the staff that we have. I'm requesting in regards about the security guard at this time. I'll leave that up to you as a Board of Ed. Based upon the percentage of where we are, again, additional teacher at the middle school and the 3 permanent building subs. You even talked about maybe going ahead and trying to move forward and do that at the February agenda. I'm recommending that you do not give any benefits as far as insurance, just an increased salary. But that's something Mr. Bucci and I will talk to you about, and you'll make that call. I want everybody to know that this is bare bones, because I want the public to realize what we've cut. We've cut an assistant principal. We cut an assistant special ed director. We cut a secretary at the high school level. Plus, we cut another 0.5 position. We have made many cuts here since I've been here. That's what I've had to do year after year. Into my 3rd year is one cut after another. Last year, we had to go, and I hope some of the Board of Finance Committee members are listening, because please hear me. We cannot go below this. We have cut to the bare bone. I can't cut anymore, or I can't do my job here. I just want people to hear this and understand our need. We got down to 2.5. We can barely make it without possibly going into the red. A Board of Ed, our budget, we're not going in the red, even if it means not filling a position in which we badly need. So that's all I have to say. I'm passionate about it, but there's multiple positions that has been cut here. Multiple. And ESSER funds, everybody got lots of money in ESSER and personnel, and we had to come back here that first year I was here and give them layoff letters, okay? So it is what it is. I don't have a magic wand. I can tell you there's school districts out there that are in the shape we're in, and some of them are, they're asking for 6%. They're asking for 5.5. They're asking for 4.5 and whatever. So there's a lot of variation going on out there. And something you have to consider the next year is when you face contractual agreements again and how we're going to deal with that. So the town, the Board of Finance, listen to me. We can't cut anymore. We can't cut. We can't hurt our children and the educational level of what you do here. You have a very good school system, and we don't need to cut anymore. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So, out of the packet with the Appendix E, I think the stipend for Mr. Lucky, I don't think anybody's gonna argue that. Any questions or anything on this guy? Anybody have anything?
Yeah. I'm not seeing or understanding the difference between a grade level coordinator in the Appendix E and department heads at the high school.
Okay, they have department heads at the high school. And in regards with the other ones that you're talking about the grade level coordinators at the middle school,
There's also at the high school.
okay?
I think, well, I don't know, this is not current then, because Mr. Cleveland's at the high school, but he's the first grade level coordinator, I see. So grade level coordinators are all at the middle school?
These are at the middle school. Brian needs to be removed because he is at the high school.
So are we sure that this is a current list?
It is, Lisa had went over with me, Salvatore sent it to me. I think Brian was the only one. Let me go down the list here very quickly. Brian is the one that I see that's not, because he is at the high school, been at the high school now into his second year.
Okay. There are some others, though. I mean, Alyssa Generali is no longer in the district, so she's not the volleyball coach.
No, the coaches have been in and out. I did make a change over here on the first sheet that was updated with Lisa. She has specific breakdown of each of the appendix that came off her list. It's on my desk. This is a spreadsheet that Salvatore keeps on going. Some of them Lisa is not updated.
It's okay.
with him.
So I see that there's 8 grade level coordinators. That's 1 for each team,
Yeah, right.
plus 2 for Unified Arts. So there's 8 altogether at the middle school. And then where are the salaries for department head? They're not Appendix E?
They're actually spelled out. They're in there. They're also in the contract.
Where are they in Appendix E?
14. It's, yeah,
They're not.
department
I saw
chairs.
something.
It's on the
They're department
third
chairs.
page,
Okay.
right here,
Yes.
Yeah,
38, 38, 4,
item
38,
14.
81.
Department chairs right here, yeah. That's actually just spelled out in the contract.
Okay, so how many are there? There's only, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a listing to understand the full amount of money being spent on department chairs.
Okay, I can tell you that we have an English department chair, a math department chair, a social studies department chair, a language arts department chair, and did I say science?
No, you said ELA twice,
And
so
science.
that's fine.
Science, math, language arts, history, and world language.
So there's world language is another one?
I-
1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
Yes, I think I'm correct.
I think we only have 2 world language teachers now.
Well, let me double check, but I think, yeah. Now, we'll get a list in regards, it should be actually, well, there's not, they don't fall under Appendix E, excuse me, they're just a part of the contract.
And these,
So we can,
all of these Appendix E positions are technically
That's right.
1 year,
yes,
1 year, so
yeah.
we're not missing any positions, even though the names might be,
Well, the best way to do it is take it straight from the contract. I didn't bring the contract over here, but the contract lists everyone, and if there's been any changes, like an incubator club or whatever,
have a lot of questions of this appendix 1. Because I understand that it's part of the contract, and that's perfectly fine,
Yeah.
but it's not giving us a really clear understanding of how much is being spent, because we don't have the number of people here. So like for item 11, the teacher assigned to teach a college cooperative program, is there just one teacher receiving that 1,200? Are there multiple?
We have multiple because we have with our dual credit programs with UConn and some others. So actually what you're asking for is a detailed list, which is good, of every type of expenditure on the secondary level.
And can you talk about item 13, content area coordinators?
You only have one of those, and that's the one I've discussed with the 3,280, the guidance. That's it.
Okay.
So what we'll get you tomorrow, it won't help you tonight, but this is contractual. I mean, you all understand that, but I know you want to get a true understanding of what is the total cost with department heads, everything with expenses that you're having to budget. Yes.
Would it happen to be, because we have the list of
You
all-
have the breakdown with the salaries that I included, well, that Salvatore, that I'd ask him to print out. This is in the very back of your books. And this is everybody's salary from mine on down.
But it doesn't include any,
It does, it would include it's their full compensation. But it doesn't show, it's got a coordinator pay.
Right.
Or a department head pay in there.
So we'll make sure that you get a listing of, because tonight I went over the stipends with you, but what you're missing and what you'd like to see is specific, the breakdown. You want to know the 5 department chairs, you want to know specifically with any other, with dual credit, and actually what the contract involves, how much payment, what are we having to budget for? Right, Kristen?
I mean, I don't necessarily need to see the individual. I mean, you answered the questions. The reason why I was asking is because I think it's important. Okay, now we have the answer. Item 13 in Appendix 1, there's only one coordinator. There's 5 department chairs. The reason I was asking specifically about department chairs, because we heard several times about the need for help in doing observations for evaluations, and that was brought up as one of the reasons that the high school wanted to reinstate at least a .5
Yes.
assistant principal.
Yes.
So, but we've also heard that in many districts, department chairs do observations.
They
So
do.
can we
Yeah.
have our department chairs start doing evaluations to, because I don't
They
have an
could-
appetite to add back a .5.
Right, and
administrator.
they could do that, but here's where we are with that. If they do, and most of them that don't have a third do that, and I'll do fairness, but they have to be freed up a class. They teach one less class. So that's why I basically had Mrs. Feige doing English, Dr. Boyle doing special ed, this one helping with the counseling, social work, whatever, based upon like that .5 assistant principal. So that's technically where that thought was coming from. It would be good down the road to be able to go to that. I will tell you that. I don't think you ought to in this budget, but I'm just saying what we've done has worked. One thing, and I don't want to speak out of line, and I don't want to get ridiculed, because that's why I went over this $40,000. These attendance officers that I've caught a lot of havoc over and people griping over, apparently, based upon the data, they've worked out well. They all have 092s because tardies is a big area on a high school level. And some counseling departments also help, and they help as well. Don't get me wrong. If a kid's got a problem, don't want to go to class, not coming to school, then the counselors work with them as well. By small groups with these 5 people, they've done some effective work. So, that's kind of where we are. Can't have them have department heads doing evaluation unless you're in what you can afford.
so
Can.
to Kristen's point, if we were to do that at the high school or middle school, we would, if they're teaching one less, and let's just say in middle school, if there's 6 or 8, we would need one teacher, basically, in each one of those
That's
buildings.
exactly right when you start figuring it out.
And from what I understand, you need to have an 092, you need to be an administrator, not have an 092. You need to be employed as an administrator to do the evaluation.
Yeah, you can only do observations.
Right.
That's right, Kristen. You
Yeah,
cannot do the
right.
final evaluation, only observations.
But the observation that the department chair does can be used in
Yes,
the evaluation that the
Well, as of
administrator does.
Right now, I don't believe we've been presented with an updated teacher evaluation plan. I believe every district has to either provide an update.
We're in that
approve-
process.
Right.
Yes.
So I think we're kind of putting the cart before the horse.
But it's
If we're going to be making decisions about who's evaluating when we don't have a plan.
Well,
Yeah, no, I mean, I wasn't trying to make a decision on it, I was just trying to be responsive to the high school administrator's
yeah.
statement that he needed an assistant principal back to do
And-
the evaluation, so.
And it's a lot. They have to do a lot, but I can tell you down the road, I would look, once this teacher evaluation is done and completed, which we're all required to do, then you can look at department chairs doing that, because most of the high schools all do it. In honesty, they do, but I'm just telling you, when you take another class away from them, and I'm thinking scheduling, we can't hire more teachers, and I'm just thinking classes and trying to cover. That's why I said right now, this is what it is. I just want to be forthcoming about every dime we spend, so everybody understands that. Nobody's hiding anything. And I think the questions you've all asked are great, because you need to know, okay, you're supporting them, but you want to know, how many are we paying for dual credit? That's wonderful. I mean, it is, and we want to be proud of that. And they don't, at the middle school level, we won't go there as well, because that's another expense.
Dr. Fent?
Yes,
Question.
yeah.
Department heads teach one fewer class
If they would do observations,
for the purpose of doing observations.
yeah.
Are they required to use that time for observations on a regular basis? In other words, if a department chair has, for the sake of argument, 5 teachers under him or her, for whom he or she is responsible, are they required to observe multiple classes during the course of the evaluation period and do a summary evaluation? Or do department heads, for the sake of an observation, do they just do a walkthrough, or do they do a full period observation? How does that work?
I don't want to speak for them and what they would do, but it should be a full observation that would be compiled the data as one of their types of being observed. Mrs. Feige, you've done, would you like to speak to that as well? If they were actually doing, come up here, if they were actually doing observations, it's documented, it's a part of the evaluation process. And that's what a department chair
we
would
don't-
be required to do. But I don't know, she's been doing just,
We haven't used the department chairs to do the evaluations. Right now, currently, you must do a minimum of 2 evaluations with post-observation. The observations are about 20 minutes to 30 minutes.
it's what he needed to know specifically, and they would do some of that with the
There's
documentation.
Meeting at the beginning of the year, mid-year, and the end of the year evaluation too. So there's some meetings spaced throughout the year in addition to a minimum of 2 observations. Sometimes you're asked to go in additional times, either you need to or you want to, or the teacher wants to as well. If they're doing something special, they want you to see that and that to be part of their observation too.
On the average, it's usually 2.
But two, and then walkthroughs periodically throughout the year, and those would be a matter of 5 to 10 minute walkthroughs. And those, and with a brief conference.
Yeah, we're not
Yeah,
looking
that's
to,
it,
to
but,
do
yeah.
this now, so.
I know, but that's just, it just really gives him a little bit of the background with what they would be doing. But they'd have a specific, job description attached to that with what, if we go to that route.
All right. Anything else with this packet that we have? Anything else? We could always come back to it. So this guy here, so I'm assuming that you're, and taking with what you had sent us earlier, you are recommending the same budget as last year with the classroom teacher, 3 building subs, which I think we're going to take up in February. And then also the security guard at the high school. And that-
One of the things we just switched out to where it had said alternative teacher, we just put in just a regular SMS classroom teacher based upon enrollment. That was the only thing that we made for this change that's also in your notebook and in your handouts.
I'm sorry, I did not follow that.
Yeah, the only
I thought
change,
the letter, I thought, Dr. Compton, your letter said you were not recommending the security guard, or it's not in here? Not
It's
that
not
you're
in
not
here.
recommending it, the
It-
security guard is not in here.
it's not in there.
Leaving that up to us.
Right, and.
Well, this is down here with Salvatore's final, this is just with the adopted budget about what we have and don't have in there. That's if you would add it. But at this time, I left it out.
It's $27,000 actually. If I delete it, it's still be 4.5%. Because it's essentially a rounding error.
So,
What is this, Chris?
If I can comment on this if you'd like.
I think this is what we saw last week.
it's identical to what
With
you had
just the
last
difference.
night.
We swapped out
Yeah, you weren't
SMS
here.
classroom teacher.
No, I
for
watched the whole
adult
meeting,
ed.
though.
She listened.
So what my question is, this is your budget that you're suggesting we move forward with.
Yeah, I'm not recommending the security guard, that's up to you as a board. I did say the classroom teacher and the 3 permanent subs, that's in there, and that can be your decision.
Chair, Mr. Chair, I mean, it looks to me, and I'm prepared to make a motion, that we accept the superintendent's recommendation for a 4.5% increase in the 2024-2025, which includes 3 permanent building subs, 1 classroom teacher at the Seymour Middle School. That's my motion.
So we have a motion on the floor by Mr. Stramella. Do we have a second?
I second it.
Okay, second by Jim. All right. Other discussions? Stefan?
Yeah, I think that we should be going for more, to be honest. Looking through the list, there are a lot of needs that the 4.5 budget would not fill, including social workers. At least 1 social worker, which I think would be extremely valuable. A low-hanging fruit that should be very inexpensive and I think would be super valuable to the high school is the substance abuse counselor, which they were asking for a 0.25. We don't have a dollar amount on that, but it can't be a lot relative to everything else. I would also, and I just made a rough prioritization, but I would also be in favor of an additional BCBA position, and as well as potentially adding another teacher to CLS based on their needs. There's a couple other things I would like to, but we can get into that later perhaps.
I am with Stefan, and my priorities really center on making sure that there is equity between the literacy programs, and I'm including ELL with that bucket between Bellevue School and CLS. I don't feel like I have a really clear understanding of what one school has more than the other. I understand that there are different amounts of students in each school, but just because we have, like, I'll make up numbers, 24 ELL students at Chatfield and 16 at Bungie, just because Chatfield, we have to have a teacher because of state law, it doesn't mean that, you know, the Bunkie kids shouldn't have equal and equitable access to one. But I don't know how to act on that because I'm not clear about what each school has.
Well, let me just say, in regards with, again, with the ELL, it's based upon the 20 kids, and that's why CLS has that. It's a state mandate. We are doing our best to provide some services for them in regards. I don't agree with the second BCBA because we've had 2 BCBAs and they're not, I won't go into that. That's a big expense. I don't support that. I would rather see it spent towards ELL. I mean, looking at unified arts, basically more in the teaching area. The situation being with what we have as far as substance abuse, I don't know if we could work with consulting services there, Stefan. I think that's something we should look at because we have 4 counselors at the high school. They're not substance abuse. That's not their specialty. But if we could work with maybe a contractual group that could help us, that might be one way. I mean, you all can look and see what you think needs to be prioritized.
I'd happily trade the second BCBA for the ELA coordinator or unified arts teacher.
If I was going to do it, I would put it with where the needs are with the ELL and the unified arts because of what we have going on and the demands of our population and the need.
So we have this budget, the 4.5. Is there anything on this list that you feel as superintendent is something that's right outside of this? And then I'm gonna pass it over to Ms. Birdo in a moment.
I see the need more with ELA, with our English language learners than anything else. That's our number one, you know, based upon what our needs are. In regards with literacy, if you had plenty of money, you'd hire a literacy coach, but I think we need to utilize what we have. If I could look at anything, I would have to say ELL, English language learners.
I have several things.
Okay.
First, I want to point out to the community as we look through this and we look through our staffing, we currently have 2 secondary buildings without a library media specialist. When we think about what we don't have and what we've cut, we have 2 buildings with beautiful libraries. Look around, nobody is instructing.
We got a plan here for this one.
That's-
So here's the good news. The fact that we have a fine teacher who's retiring from the middle school, an 8th grade science teacher. We currently have 2 STEM labs. We have tech ed and you have STEM. It's all one thing. It should be all one program. So we have, with that retirement, that person is already making a recommendation to go into science. Therefore, we will come back and be able to take that other unified arts position where you had 2 STEM positions and now have a media specialist. That was in his proposal that's in your notebooks about to have a media specialist, which this middle school needs, and they would have classes as a part of the unified arts.
So we're converting an FTE.
Yes, full, yes, we will have that for next year.
That's great.
That's great. So we need, you know, definitely something else at the high school, but we're making gains on bringing that back.
So with the additional FTE here at the middle
Here.
school, when it was presented at the last meeting, there was discussion about changing the schedule to increase instructional time.
Yes.
Is this position required to do that?
This person would be doing classes in the unified arts. Yes, they would be coming in here.
No, I'm talking about the additional, what's in the budget.
Classroom teacher.
Classroom teacher based on enrollment increase here. Is that due to the change in schedule?
No, has nothing, only enrollment. It's only based upon the difference of enrollment for next year's classes. That's where this one middle school teacher of the increase is. And that's also in the handout that we shared last time. in detail. He showed the breakdown. There was at least 18 kids. At least, and we know 5 more, probably just an estimate of an average summer is whatever. So it justified he had more growth than the other schools.
This position is is a what teacher at what level?
We haven't determined that yet. I know what's needed. I'll just tell you, I think there needs to be a shift. We've got people with multiple certifications. We need to hire another math. Because what is our lowest area here what is our need across is mathematics. So we've got people that are multi-certified and I'm very proud of that fact.
Right now, if everybody stayed where they were,
Yes.
where do we have classes that wouldn't be covered?
By adding the additional, Keith, you want to come up and speak to that real fast? We've also got a schedule where we've increased content time of 1 hour. Well, there'll be no more 44 minutes of
So we are
mathematics.
changing the schedule.
Just the schedule, but it
Right,
doesn't
but
affect the teacher.
that's not why we need the other teacher.
Right, that's not, it's based totally on
If we
enrollment.
didn't change the schedule,
No, it
next
wouldn't
year.
affect, it's increased enrollment.
So through the chair, if we kept the current schedule status quo, we would still need the FTE.
okay.
We would still need the FTE. We're looking to increase instructional contact time in the content areas. We're in the middle of getting feedback from the staff. We actually have a committee meeting on Wednesday. We have staff members who already submitted ideas. I have ideas as well. We're very confident that we're going to have a schedule that increases content time in the course and also provides unified arts offerings on a more comprehensive basis to students. So students are actually getting all the UAs. Whether we change the schedule or not, we still have the same need in terms of FTE if we stay status quo. Getting the school media specialist is a result of the creative
Retirement.
utilization of our resources in retirement, but we need to, if we were hiring today, it would be a social studies teacher, but it doesn't have to be. Through certifications of current staff, and when we get to that point, we'll look and see where the biggest strengths are to determine what we're going to bring.
No more on the middle school. I do want to talk about ELL. But did you?
I had one on the middle school.
Okay.
Just real quickly, I see the cost of the additional middle school teacher at 108. I'm just curious as to what step that was. I'm sure that includes benefits. But what step was used to?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just did an estimate.
Should be step 8, according to this.
Just did an
What are you adding
estimate.
for
Assuming we're
benefits?
accounting for total, like a full benefit package.
Mhm.
So it would be close to, what this says,
Yeah, give or take step
8 or 9 probably.
Okay, thanks.
Keep rolling.
So I'm still, we added a teacher this year.
In the middle school here,
Right,
yes.
and so are we replacing positions that we cut and that didn't work out? I'm
What
just
happened, we had an increase of 20-some kids. And we actually had cut a position. When we had to go down to
Right.
2.5,
Yes.
we had to cut a position here.
And then we put it right back in.
And then we
because
actually
we-
cut
Yeah.
a music teacher from the high school who was a .8 and put the person here.
So we've reallocated from the high school
Yes.
as well, okay.
So that's another position. So technically, looking at this, your unified arts, but specifically your ELL is the number one concern.
So for the ELL, this is something, and I just for the public, after we had approved the budget last year, we received notification from the state that we needed to post for a bilingual teacher.
Yes, that's what you have to do first, that's the law.
So no one applied for, we weren't able to fill that, so we sort of reallocated FTE or reallocated assignments to cover the responsibilities. But this year, again, we are required to repost
We have to,
for a bilingual teacher.
yes.
So I think knowing that, that's what we should be putting into the budget. Again, this is an unfunded mandate that came after, through legislation, after the budget was developed and approved by the town. So I think knowing that that is the requirement, we should be including it.
That teacher's not included in the
No.
current, okay.
Because I've made out with the .5 and survived.
Right, and that's.
It's called survival.
that was the
I had to
responsible
think out of
thing.
the box, and you had to think with me, and you did.
But I think that the town needs to understand that this is a requirement.
And knowing what the market is it, and how difficult it is to find bilingual teachers, do we need to assume that we would have to go higher than a step 8? Or do you feel comfortable collectively as putting it in at the same amount as the middle school teacher?
It's in the budget as a master's step 9
Okay,
with dual coverage health. Husband and wife.
Yep. Uh-huh.
Teacher and
Which is
child.
safe, it's the only thing we can do, or else we'll fall short, right?
It's not 14.
Yep.
And it's also not 4.
So 9. Step
It's
9.
master's level,
Masters.
step 9 with dual coverage health.
Yeah.
That's the 108,827 number is is that you see there.
Great, okay.
That's all in.
I feel like
That's
we
on
should.
here?
That's-
Or that's this one?
That's on this revised sheet.
A master's 9.
Master's
Yes.
9 with dual coverage health is on this sheet.
Okay.
Seems reasonable, I think, for a placeholder for an ELL teacher.
So in addition to the middle school, we would be looking at an additional 108 to that. Okay.
We need a
Yep.
motion to
Well,
amend
we-
Ed's motion?
Well,
Can't remember what Ed's motion was?
the
Just
4.5.
do the two that we.
No, I think we should just vote on it and not have it.
Yeah, it's probably
Pass.
quicker. And it's probably better to make motions with dollar amounts than percentages going forward. Anything else on the 4.5? All right, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions?
I'm abstaining.
That motion fails 0-7-1.
Can we-
I
can-
need the votes again, sorry.
All no's except Ed, who abstained.
Motion second,
Everybody
yeah.
voted no.
Right, everybody voted no.
All right, so just to get some information here, so current budget that the superintendent gave us with the 108,827 for the classroom teacher, we're basically wanting to add another teacher to that at that same rate for the ELL. Before anybody makes any motion, is there anything else from the needs assessment or anything else we wanted to contemplate?
You need to decide, like on that security officer.
And also whether or not we're choosing to include the security guard in that.
But nobody's brought that up, so.
Right,
So I'm assuming that we're not in favor of it, that we're agreeing with
I don't think
what
we've got,
Dr. Compton said.
I don't think we've gotten there yet, to be honest.
We didn't really have discussion. I trimmed mine down and did what I could do.
If I may, I don't think we've talked enough about the need for a social worker and our openness to adding that. I'm based on I can only go off the arguments that were made by our administrators.
Well,
That was a very compelling argument to add one social worker split between the two elementary schools, but I'd love to hear other people's thoughts.
I have thoughts. Right now, we have an unfilled school psychologist position. As a school psychologist, I am pro-school psychologist. I think they can perform a variety of responsibilities within a school, within the special education program. However, there is such a shortage of school psychologists in the state that it might be a move, and again, this is up to Dr. Compton, but to replace that position with a social worker and have the school psychologist split between the two buildings and have, so that you have a full-time mental health person in each building.
Well, here's my recommendation, and you're not gonna like it, but I'm gonna tell you from my heart. We have a full-time social worker here and 2 counselors and a psychologist
Here where, middle school?
at this middle school.
Can you say it one more time?
Okay, and for everybody to understand staffing, and we have good staff. We have 2 counselors and a psychologist and a full-time social worker. My recommendation is that the social worker goes over to Bungie School 1 day a week and works with specifically the REACH program and services. We don't need a social worker just for REACH. It's a one program, a one-room structure, folks. We have a school psychologist, which we haven't been able to hire, a CLS, in every school. We have 2 counselors at Chatfield. Currently at Bungie, they have 1 counselor. So, situation being, I think based upon the fact we have 2 social workers up at the high school, I think here we could do it 1 day a week. They could go over there and try that and see how it works, because you're asking specifically for that REACH program. And I know they also talked about Chatfield, that they could use another social worker. Well, some places have a social worker and a counselor. They might not have 2 counselors. So based upon the needs of what we're dealing with, that's my recommendation. Because we've got counselors, we've got 4 at the high school, 2 here, 2 at Chatfield, and 1 here. Now, I will be the first to tell you, the social and emotional needs, these people work and they work hard. But I just think based upon where we're at, I'd rather see a psychologist try to be hired at CLS, and then really try with those services to try to reach out as well. We've got good social workers. I think this one here could do well at Bungie. That's why I put down district level.
Yeah, I wanted to ask a little bit
Yeah.
more about that. I understand what you're saying, but what I don't understand is how you see declaring them district. I don't think those individuals think of themselves as district level. So are we trying to affect a philosophical change where all of our special ed staff don't think of themselves as docked into a school?
Well,
Just share a little bit more about that philosophy, because, you put it right in your letter, right? So-
basically, a lot of people, when it comes to special services, many times do they call them district placement. And it's a situation sometimes, say the caseloads would change and you would have an increase in special ed numbers, sometimes then you've got to transfer. Then now contractually right now, you've got to go through, okay, could this person apply? Yes. Would they get seniority? Yes. That part we would still abide by. But when you get into social workers, speech pathologists, counselors and psychologists, I'm sorry, it needs to be district level placement based upon the needs and the caseloads. We're not going to alternate a lot from it, but there's home base, but there's also district level based upon the need. That's what we did with the speech pathologist this year, as we went into this year.
And we have positions that do that now, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's my opinion in regards right now. If you could wave the magic wand and have everything you wanted instructional coaches and the social workers, it's great, but I think we have to be realistic. I think we need to try to work within the restrictions of what we have to see how it works. I don't like it because we don't have a band director at the high school. I'd be the first one to tell you. I don't think that's good either. And we cut that and we modified. They go 2 hours up there and do band. Not actually band, instrumental music and a choral class. So when you really looking at what we got and how we can think out of the box, not going to kill somebody, even if it was just a half a day to provide social work services for some of the families that's in these programs that we all need services to help our kids.
Has our district ever explored, because I'm sure that, I will not say a lot, I am sure that some of our students in our specialized programs are receiving state services. Have we ever explored working with Bridges and other organizations like that to have a resident social worker where that person actually is getting paid from the state. They just happen to sit here because this is where the children are.
One of the things that we want to do is apply for a grant as well and see if we can get some additional staff in regards to
So
that.
for example,
And work with
is it West
contractual
Haven?
services.
Is West Haven or East Haven? They have a Bridges social worker
Yes.
or counselor in the school. It's not a school employee.
Right, and you can contract out as well. But that's, based
like-
upon,
If we looked into that, but why do we think we'll be able to find and hire a psychologist this year if we didn't last year?
I don't, we're not gonna find one this year. We're hoping that somebody next year, as they go through the program, that's how we were able to get the one at the high school. We got her directly out of, as soon as she graduated, we were recruiting. That's what we're hoping. It's a real scarcity for school psychologists.
Which is why your idea had appealed to me. Instead of having a vacant psychologist position for a year, let's go ahead and fill it with, they're not exactly the same, we all know
No.
that, but
But, yeah. Because I
Saying
think,
cost-wise, folks, what do you think this town when it goes out to vote? I mean, it's a tough situation. I'm just trying to get some balance.
If I may, I'm asking these questions from a place of taking at face value what our administrators are telling us they need in their schools, not what they want, what they need. Our job here should not be to appease the voters before the process has even started at the town level. Our job here is to advocate for what is needed in our buildings and for the betterment of our students' educations. So if multiple principals are coming in here and telling us that they need something, I'm gonna push for that, whether I think the town will vote for it or not. And I think we owe it to them to do so. I don't like the idea of negotiating against ourselves, so to speak, because we think we might be able to jury-rig some solution that may be able to get by in the schools because we're afraid of what may happen with the Board of Finance or with the town. So anything I'm asking for is I'm advocating on behalf of our administrators, and I hope that others up here would do the same.
I hear you, and I agree with you. Where I struggle is in this long list of things, we can't add them all, even if we all believed.
No, we can't,
No.
but we can take a shot at
Yeah.
prioritizing,
Yeah.
and we can be more aggressive in what we're asking for, and not
Right.
say, we can get by if we add one teacher, and then maybe we won't
Right.
fill a position, so we'll get lucky there.
Stephon,
It's
I've
not-
been very aggressive. I was
I
extremely
understand,
aggressive.
and Dr.
last year.
Compton,
You
I
know
understand
that.
your position, you have to be pragmatic,
Yeah,
there's
that's
reason
all
for
I'm
that, but
trying
we
to
don't
do.
have to be.
No, you don't
We don't have
have
to be, so, I'm not arguing against you necessarily,
I know that.
but I'm being more aggressive than you're being because my position and your position are not the same.
Right.
And I think we should be less afraid and more bold and telling this town, we need these things. That's why they're here, not because we want them, not because we want your taxes to go
Yeah.
up. We need these things based on our best and brightest employees who have risen to the administration here. They tell us they need this. I think we need to listen to them, to whatever extent we can. And to not even put a prioritization on some of these things, I think is missing an opportunity. And we're gonna keep doing it year after year because we're afraid and we're gun shy. And it's frustrated me forever, long before I was on this board, and as I've sat on this board now, this is my third go-around, it's more frustrating than ever.
So, if we take a look at this, right, and I'm just putting check marks by the things that I know we're adding. So, the two elementaries and middle school, we're adding the permanent building sub. Middle school is the additional social studies teacher. Then also, I'm guessing,
It may be social studies, it may not be.
Right, it's just a teacher.
and I'm guessing district-wide, is that ELL teacher?
Yes,
Okay, so that is,
mainly it's for the elementaries.
What are you looking for, Chris, the number?
no, I just copied the one that
Okay.
was
'Cause
on there.
I'm keeping a list.
because there could be need at the middle school.
That's
with the
true.
Right.
Increasing enrollment.
So,
Never
so
know.
with that, I mean, I, additional two building subs at the middle school, is that something
No,
we're contemplating?
no,
Like, we
please.
We just
One.
probably need to
He
go
needs
through all
one,
these
not two.
one by one.
Yeah.
I mean, it's on the list, is what I'm
Okay,
saying.
okay, I'll be
So
quiet.
does anybody feel that, besides Mr. O'Rourke, that we need 2 more building subs here? We'll be lucky to get 1.
I do have a question, though, that is not really related, but it's middle school. Can I build on that? 2 instructional coaches, how many instructional coaches are there at the middle school right now? 0. So for me, that absolutely leapfrogs 2 additional building subs. So
I think the distinction here is building subs, I believe, are going to at least be cost neutral for us, based on what we discussed last time. It's going to create a much easier situation to fill classes, fill classrooms with you know, an authority person
Right.
there, and it will also lessen our needs to go above and beyond salary-wise to fill those classes. So I don't
Financial savings.
think permanent building subs need to be an either-or thing. I think that they should be a given for us, essentially, because it's not something that is even going to necessarily cost us more money. And even if it does, it's very minuscule in the grand scheme of things.
we do have them added now, though, in the superintendent's budget.
We also,
One for each.
Without a
Correct.
commensurate decrease, and it's not cost neutral is what I'm saying right now.
we also discussed trying to get them before this budget goes into place.
And-
Try to get them for this year as soon as possible.
And for
I
us,
totally
Sal,
hear that, but I'm just pointing out that it's here for an increase of $93,000. So
Right.
Right.
I'm not sure that's accurate, but Sal, can you speak to that? Can you reiterate what we were talking about last time? Do you believe it's gonna cost us an additional $93,000 of budget to hire 3 permanent building
What I
subs?
believe is going to happen is it's going to be offset by the cost overruns that we're experiencing this year as a result of not having to use existing teacher staff at the contractual rate of $42.45 an hour to fill vacant classrooms. And so the math I did roughly said that it could cost us about 1/3 if we actually had full-time people here. And by the way, I increased the rate to $170 since last week when we were here.
We changed that.
Because when you looked at this sheet, you had the alternative education proposal in total was 115. It got reduced down to 108 with the, basically exchanging the middle school additional classroom teacher and dropping the adult education proposal. And then I turned around and added another 30 cents, $30 per day for each building sub, which increased to roughly $17,000 or so. So this number you're seeing on here now is 3 permanent building subs at $170 a day. To the question you were asking, we are currently running over budget. Last time I was here, I gave you some idea that there were roughly 1,500 classes between September and December that needed to be filled, and that approximately 1,300 of them had been filled by existing teaching staff, which, when you fill them, it runs roughly 3 times the cost.
To cut to the chase, Sal, is there a line item in our budget that will decrease if we add the 93,000 for
No, I
3
already
buildings?
decreased it. I didn't increase the substitute teacher budget.
Okay, so you've left the substitute teacher budget alone.
The way it is.
We are gonna spend well in excess of what we budgeted this year.
If we're doing what we're doing this year, yes.
when we have our finance committee meetings, can you make sure that we call out, if in February this does happen, when we vote as a board, in the narrative, can you keep track of that through the end of
Sure.
the year for
Yeah,
us?
we've begun to slice and dice the account and just put it in different buckets so I can track what's Delta T substitute teachers, what's existing teacher staff substitute teachers, what's, and what is legitimately building substitute teachers who are making $115 a day to actually perform the role. There is some of that also. So what I can do for the next finance committee meeting is I can tell you what those 3 components are. But I do know that the 2 components we discussed last time were roughly 1,437 classes at about $60-something thousand, which was paid to the smallest component, which is the full-time building subs that we're currently using.
So
So
while
this is a
there's-
$93,000 increase to the budget.
Yeah,
The
while there's an impact,
$93,000 does not increase the budget. Because I did not provide for an increase in substitute teacher pay on the premise that if you approved the 3 full-time building subs, we would be able to cover the substitute teacher costs at a far more effective rate.
so
We would
in the
wanna
budget,
see-
it's a net zero. In the budget, is it a net zero?
No.
No, it's
So
still
what
an
we wanna
additional
see-
93,000.
We're actually saving money, because if you put in $93,000 for full-time building subs, we're
Here's the-
going to save more
Are
than
you
93,000.
pulling 93,000
So,
out
no,
of the
this
No,
is
sub?
here's
what-
the
This
confusion.
is what we need to see. What was in the Board of Ed approved budget last year? What was in the final town voted for budget last year, and what the actuals are, and then what it looks like in the new board approved budget.
I
The
can tell
confusion
you
is,
that.
the
All of those
confusion
things.
is,
Does that make
we're,
sense?
we're going to be neutral roughly or less on actual spend on the 23-24 budget, but we are going to be increasing the budget, the budget by $93,000 because of adding 3 building substitutes.
Can I clarify, because
That's what
maybe
I'm,
I did not
that's what I'm
hear
saying.
That's how
you
I
right.
understand it.
The current year that we are in, 23-24, the budget for secretaries is $279,713.
Substitutes?
Sorry, substitutes.
Okay.
Sal is anticipating the actual to be $44,775 more than that, correct?
As of right now.
As of right now. But that's not what is over right now. That's what you expect it to be at the end of the
That's-
year?
That's what it's over right now.
Okay, well, there you go.
And
So,
it's just gonna get bigger.
So it's gonna be
Right.
close to
It's gonna get
90,000.
bigger.
exactly.
So what I'm saying is for the
Budget going up.
24,
Budget is going up,
25
actuals
budget,
staying the
you have to encumber $90,000 in the budget, unless you are going to take an additional 90,000 out of the sub-account line.
Yes.
If the permanent building substitute teachers are not approved
Just-
for the next budget cycle, we will need to increase the provision for substitute teachers in this budget. So either way,
Gotcha.
it's going to
Okay,
cost you
all
more.
right.
But that's what I
Yeah.
understood, and I think we're finally,
I don't know that we are, because the current budget, what Sal has done in the budget is already, for substitutes, is already $77,000 more than last year. So we're going up in the original budget,
24, 25.
yeah. But again, I don't know what this budget is, Sal, I'm sorry. I don't know if this budget includes the extra stuff, or if this is a level services budget, the detailed budget.
The substitute line of the 356,703 includes the $93,000 that is being proposed
Okay.
for the substitute teachers.
Okay, that's where our confusion is, because we don't have a column in this budget detail that shows level services. That's why we're all confused. Or at least that's why I'm confused.
But I forgot
Yeah.
our timeline to present a budget downtown.
Wednesday,
Well, okay, so today is,
pretty much it.
Yeah, you
that's
gotta,
what I'm saying, and we're spinning
better-
our wheels. We need to come up with, we need to come up with a more substantial number for us to approve tonight.
to be safe, I would
To get it downtown. And I understand we're talking about important details and stuff there, but we need to make a decision. We need to say, okay, if we're gonna add more than what we want, we need to say tonight, how much more does that position cost? How much more does this position cost? How much more does this position cost? Add it up and see what percentage it is, so that we can make a motion to approve a budget. And if we don't wanna do it by percentages, with a bottom line number
Yeah.
tonight.
can always
With,
move
with
it
this,
around.
with this budget, and then a master's 9 for the ELL teacher, it's 39,996,719.
Oh, good.
but I don't know if that's where we, to Stefan's point, I don't know if that's where we want to stop.
You also you talked
That
about
included
the,
what, Chris? I'm sorry?
The ELL teacher,
The ELL teacher.
you
Okay, so
also,
we have to vote, we have to vote, we have to agree on the numbers.
you haven't talked about the security guard.
No,
And
not right now.
that's
The
gonna get,
security guard is in here, but we don't want the security guard.
mirror,
well, that's up to you. It's
Additional.
on there if you want.
Okay,
The security guard is not, oh, it is?
it is.
It is.
Okay, it is.
But what Sal was
Right.
saying, if it comes out, it's still 4.5, but
Right,
it doesn't,
right.
it's not the real amount.
The
So
security-
I personally think we should be adding in the 2 instructional coaches after hearing that there are 0 at the middle school. And we know the need, we know math is a problem. I don't know how we don't have instructional coaches at the middle school, or some version of them, whether it's a mix of a person who works directly with students or works directly with teachers. I don't know, but if
Well,
Mr. O'Rourke has them on his list, and there is an instructional need in the middle school, in my view.
There is, and there is in the other schools as well, specifically here in math, but I think that maybe, and I don't want to upset you all again, but I just think in regards with, if he's bringing on another teacher, it might be math, maybe something could be freed up in regards with whatever. I think also with instructional coaches, we have to be real careful with the contracts, because that's not in the contracts yet as well. So we just got to try to get a balance of whatever.
I will say,
I know
to
there's a
that
need.
concern, we do have, between now and when the budget is adopted, we have a liaison committee that can work through that.
Yeah.
If we are
Negotiations.
so fortunate to get
Right, to
something
a
we
meeting.
need from the town and the board of finance.
Are there SRBI instructors in the middle school?
There's not, and that's a good point. There are 2 at the elementary, both elementaries, but there's not at the middle school.
So I mean, whether we call them behavior interventionists or whether
Or
they're instructional
SRBI or
coaches,
something, an
it's
SRBI
math
or something.
and reading support at middle school.
so Sal, with the numbers here, so that 108,827, where are we pulling that from here? Just so that if somebody,
We just went up one step from what's on this sheet.
oh, okay. So if we were to do the instructional coaches in the budget, let's say just one, where would it make the most sense to pull it? The
113.
total with dual coverage? That's what we're basing it on? The second to last column?
It's got a number in here.
Hmm?
There's a number in here for instructional coaches.
No, but
Right,
there's like
but-
4 different
Or
numbers.
787.
Yeah, but
Which
there's
one?
4
Is it
different
the-
numbers.
Oh, I see, I see, I see.
We should go
I
to
see.
the far.
I see,
What's
gotcha,
not on this
gotcha.
sheet is family coverage, which by the way is an additional 8,000 over dual coverage. I only assume single or.
So it's the
or
113,
dual.
861.
Just to give you, to show you that it was double in terms of the amount of cost of the underlying healthcare. I mean, I would frankly budget at dual if you're looking at positions that require a level of seniority.
So the second,
People who-
so just use that second to
Yeah,
last column.
You
Okay.
know, if you're talking about
Look that way.
a new math teacher or somebody who's recently coming, they may be single, and they might, when we've had that experience. In my experience with some of these more experienced positions where you're coming in at level 9 and level 10 and level 11, is these are people who are coming into the district and taking either dual coverage or family coverage.
Let me just get clarification, because I'm hearing different numbers for the ELA position. According to this one here, if we go to high level, that's 128,478, correct?
No, that's the coordinator. This is the,
That's what he's asking about.
Wait a minute. That's a coordinator?
yeah, the one we're talking about that we need to add to Mrs. Bruno's point that we haven't been able to fill was the ELL teacher.
Okay. And so that number is not in our sheet at all?
No,
No.
it's just,
So
we
we're
just
using
have to
the same-
estimate a teacher cost like
duplicate
the
it
middle
with
Numbers
school.
of
social
classroom
studies
teachers
So
in
you could
middle school.
duplicate the social
We're
studies.
using the same numbers as the classroom teacher?
Yeah.
All right.
And then are you also looking at what Mrs. Harmley said about some type of teacher at the middle school or the SRBI or?
And is it one, is it
Now
two?
she's interested.
So that, if I'm reading that right, then we're saying that's a 0.3% increase.
Yes, it would add 108 plus .3, it'd be at 4.8.
Say again?
You would add 108,000,
Yes,
and that would increase you to 4.8.
okay, that's where I think we need to go. We need to go that way to find out what it is, that basic.
So you got leeway with what the percentage?
Okay, so we need to find out if we're all in agreement with going that way.
I think we need a dollar amount, and then we can
I
have
just want to
Sal
talk about the
equate the
positions
percentage.
first.
But yeah,
I'm like,
To be fair, I'm the only one who's offered any, any sort of prioritization here
I
so
have
far.
two.
I know you have too. You piggyback now, and you've thrown your hat in the ring. Don't go off of just what I said, and don't go off of just what Kristen said. I'd love to hear everybody else's opinion.
well, and to the CLS principal that had come in last week, I've had conversations with Dr. Compton about building a unified arts program, but instead of having it, your typical things, make it a world language. Start introducing our elementary kids to a foreign language. So I would support that, if that's something that we can close that gap in the UA block that we have at the elementary. But I would like a world language, and hopefully Jim can back me up there.
Just from like a practical standpoint here, are we talking about this position on this?
The first
the
one,
the Unified Arts teacher at CLS, which would carry a price tag of $91,010.
Well, if you think about that, you're probably looking at the same as the other classroom teacher.
Because this is more of like a leadership, more of a tenure position.
No,
no,
I
that-
don't-
not
I-
unified.
supply and demand.
Yeah,
Not language, no, right? That's not gonna be a different level.
no, but if you had a teacher come in here that's going to teach elementary Spanish,
Yeah,
I think that's gonna be somebody that is going to need to be higher up on in the step table than,
because,
I don't think there's a lot of them out there.
Yeah, so it's not about needing to be higher
I
up,
think
it's
it's
just about
more-
supply and demand.
Right.
It might
You're not
also
gonna
be
get-
practical
Yeah.
to budget all of the new teacher positions we
Right.
request at the same amount anyways.
Right.
So
Maybe
add
we'll
for
get,
some pluses and minuses.
right, maybe we'll get lucky, no coverage.
Someone might be a 10, someone might be a
Yeah,
4,
right.
someone might
It's
be.
fungible, though, I'll tell you, and I've said, you hear this in finance committee, one person takes the insurance, and there goes your surplus, you know, and occasionally somebody drops, more often than not, and like Dr. Compton and I discussed this earlier today, the plans are so robust that people hop onto the school district plans instead of their spouse's plans or significant other's plans at wherever else they were covered when they come here. So, all right.
Well, we do want to make the profession attractive.
yes,
We are in a shortage.
I'm
Yeah.
just saying from a budget point of view, it's prudent for us to assume that we're going to be providing healthcare coverage that people are taking.
right.
And that's how I budget.
And I guess from a question here that I'm just regular and special ed, is there any kind of fear that the caseloads are starting to get too high with the special ed teachers?
It all depends upon which school and how the schedule and how the IEPs are written. There's a variation out there. I've asked, I've got a request, I have the amount of kids and the caseloads of each teacher. Now I need to see the actual amount of time and, you know, what services that we are providing. We want equity. We don't want some schools giving certain groups more attention than others. It's supposed to be based upon their need to try to get the balance. You never know, it can fluctuate. It could be a need to add an extra special ed teacher. It's just sometimes you never know. You never know who's going to move in the district, who's going to move out, and what the needs are. So in regards with that, one of the things when you mentioned the ELL teacher, we talked about Would you want that to be a combination with Spanish too, or just a separate standalone? I mean, when you're looking at, when you talked about the situation with CLS, with the Unified Arts, when you talked about with the situation with Spanish, I mean, what, I mean, you've clarified an ELL teacher. We know that's needed. You talked about, then we talked about the other classroom teacher that's needed here. So are you thinking then the other one is separate Unified Arts, just Spanish, or also do ELL, or
Well,
what is your thinking?
I mean, I'm more concerned with moving the district forward educationally. I think something like that would be great. I don't know if there's even anybody in our area that does that at the elementary level. But again, it's balancing all of these other things in there as well. You know, don't want to say one is more important than the other, but where are the needs more than anything?
Well-
I didn't at all follow why there's a void and a need for one class of, I didn't understand at all the disparity between the UA at the two elementary schools. And I think, Chris, you raised the point, right? There's 5 subjects for Unified Arts. How is it that one school is somehow missing something that the other school has? But setting that aside, I think for purposes of tonight and our initial budget, if we feel like we would like to add a UA teacher and think of it as a shared district position in the same way that Dr. Compton's thinking of the special ed, and then we figure it out. And that's a really interesting idea. Could we have a UA class in both elementary schools of Spanish? So I don't know that we have to have the answer tonight is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Dr. Compton, between the two schools, there's 10 UA classes, but only 9 teachers. Is that how it's
Well,
working?
the situation with the scheduling, you have to understand that Bungie does not have quite the enrollment that Chatfield does, including preschool, they're 470 with Bungie. The CLS is about 535. We just ask that each of them go 1 day a week, 1 class a week. And like I talked about, it's all about management when they leave the building and as you have somebody to transition and work with the kids until the person gets there on time of arrival. I mean, that's more of a scheduling situation. That was done before here. It's just the imbalance of the two schools with the enrollment because they have the same amount of Unified Arts. It's just Bungie was smaller. So what's more practical? They go 1 day a week. I mean, you deal with what you got. You can't just say that because I need this or I need that or I don't want to get there, you know, it's the arrival of time and the principal there's a way to take care of that when the person comes in with the holding time until the person's there.
So what are the Unified Arts at elementary?
The Unified Arts are, again, music and art and PE and library, media specialists.
And computers? No?
No.
So that we only got 4. Art,
But 6 grades,
art, music,
PE,
PE,
library.
And
Library.
And they all meet once a week.
The variation of the schedules.
doesn't PE meet
There's usually
more?
one that meets. a
Yeah,
certain
they
time.
rotate with their schedules.
I
They
remember
make
the
it
good old
work.
days when, what was it, PE was 2 or 3 days a week, and it was not in the same rotation as the other Unified Arts, right? It meant more? When we still had
Probably when you had
computers,
technology
when we had
teachers.
technology.
Yeah, you had that option, yeah.
Another thing lost, quite honestly, certainly not in the past 3 years, but in the past decade.
Yeah, I've seen that on the list as well.
Now,
Goes back.
nobody knows how to type anymore.
A lot of elementaries, a lot of places, you
So
know, you
can
have
we
the
make some
luxury of
decisions
having
on
Spanish.
building on what Stefan has shared his priorities are, what I've shared what my priorities are, what Chris has shared? What do we want to have in this budget to submit to the town? We've taken out the security guard from here. We've added the ELL teacher. That's all we've done definitively.
Well, you have the option, the security guard's not that much money if you want to put that in. I mean, it's there, it's in that 4.5.
I still don't think we've actually talked about where
Yeah.
everybody's at on that.
That's right, that's what
No,
you need
we
to do, you need to discuss how you feel about that.
I don't support it because we did not see any numbers. We were told that everybody has one, but we didn't see anything. I don't know who has what. I don't know if,
Well, we
and is it the case that our director of security is largely stationed at the high school, or is that not the case?
He is largely stationed,
Yeah.
and I've asked him to circulate in the building as often as possible.
And there's the school resource
Right.
officer also
Right.
at the high school. I am in agreement with you on the lack of the need for that.
Yes, that's right. Let's give it a year with the cameras. Which, by the way, how come that's not itemized on this sheet?
That's in the budget.
The
with
80,000 is in.
The 80,000
Yeah,
that
it's
you
on
would
the
be given.
It's in the
third from the bottom.
technology line.
Yeah, that's under the technology part.
Chris, you want to go on?
Oh, so it's
See
just an
what
increase of
people want to do.
24,000.
Because we're getting a big
That's,
grant,
Kristen, that's because
Yeah.
it's our match.
we had a bond payment
No,
we
no,
were
I
making, and
totally-
that's over.
Yeah.
Yes,
we're
I
good.
understand. I thought we were adding 80,000 to our budget. I
No,
didn't
that-
know that our contribution only had to be 24. That's great. Okay, I
That's
see
why,
it.
that's why we gotta do it.
Cool.
Yes, we definitely have to add this package of technology with the cameras.
All right, so some of the things we had up for discussion was the UA teacher, what were the other ones that you had?
I mean, I'm fine with going with the UA teacher, some sort of instructional coach. I think Kristen made a compelling argument. However that manifests itself, I'd be in favor of that also.
1 or 2?
I mean, I'd love two, but I think one is a good start.
What about the ELO?
Yep, the
Yeah, I think-
ELO, I don't think, we don't have a choice with
Yeah, I think we have to do
Okay.
that one.
that.
The 3 building substitutes, I'm in favor of without question.
The social worker?
I'm still in favor, but I think if I don't know how we do that if we're gonna continue forward trying to find a psychologist to no avail. But we can hope, we can certainly hope we'll find one for next
So
year.
the psychologist is embedded in the budget, still, right? It didn't go away because we didn't fill it. And there is a request from each of the from each elementary school for a social worker. To your point about they have expressed this need, if we put one social worker in here, that can be shared
They
or
both said that
however.
sharing would be better than not having one.
And then what I'd like to do though, outside of budget, is, when we get to October, we still don't have that psychologist, like, let's talk about it then and say, do we want to fill it with a social worker if that's available? But I would also support adding in one social worker.
For the,
Yeah,
geared toward the elementary.
yeah,
To be
exactly.
split between all
But-
districts.
I would hope it would be geared towards the elementary, because they have one here in the middle school and they have two at the high school.
Right.
One and a
would-
half high school, right?
Right,
Or
right.
one point.
I cannot imagine putting more in middle school and high school when you don't have elementary, but I'm just telling you
No one's in
that
favor
I
of
had a
that.
plan B of how
Yeah.
this can work without one.
So, with all of those items, just bear with me.
Wait a minute, let's see if anybody else, what about, what does Lori want? Or Jim? Before we go any further, before you start adding,
Yeah, well,
Chris.
I mean, I'm adding just because,
I understand, but what I'm
I
saying
don't- I
is,
don't-
in deference to them, we should see where they like
you guys
first.
have anything?
Everything that I've been hearing makes some sense to me, and I'm not opposed to the changes that you're making, what, you're offering.
I agree with the changes. I don't think that we needed the security guard. Let's move forward.
Lori? Okay, so with,
Wait, wait.
I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, I agree, no security guard, the 3 subs, 1 instructional coach, and the UA teacher.
Okay, so
If I could bring up substance abuse counselor again, the typical salary range for a substance abuse counselor is 55 to 71,000, considering they said that they would ideally just need someone in the building maybe 10 hours a week. And if we could, you know, we can't put a definitive dollar on that, I suppose, but that's sort of, you know, maybe the $20,000 range is probably,
Could you
makes some
repeat
sense to
that?
me.
I'm not following.
Sure, so I think there's a need for a presence of a substance abuse counselor.
A what?
Substance abuse counselor, we discussed it at the last meeting. It was an
Okay.
ask from, it's not on this sheet, but it was an ask from the high school principal. He was looking for someone in the building about like a quarter of the time, 0.25, so maybe 10 hours a week, something we'd probably have to contract. I think it's a need. I think it feels like a pretty strong need, and something that we can do relatively inexpensively. But again, I don't have a definitive dollar number I can give you, but I'm just from a quick look at, you know, 40 to 80,000 is how much they make in a wide swath.
So if that was something we would
I
put a
think you would need to
placeholder for
estimate like a
25,000?
contractual, like 20,000 or 25.
I'm not gonna die on the hill. I just think it's important to not lose sight of that.
And
I
that
think-
person, go ahead.
No, you got it.
Okay. And that person would support what the social workers and the counselors are doing.
They're not trained in
They would-
substance,
I understand.
but it would be in that
But,
same,
but they would be communicating with those people also. They have to.
sure.
Yes.
Is
But they would-
there-
Because the
focus on-
counselors and the social workers work with the
100%,
kids.
100%. The way it was presented was they would be a resource for students who are personally struggling with addictions or substance abuse or have family issues as like a means of avoidance. That's the way I understood it.
I would want to study that a little bit more, and I think it might be a great thing to write a grant for or to develop a community partnership.
I agree too. I don't know that we need to put it in the budget, but I would hate
Yeah.
if we didn't think about it again until this time next year.
Yeah.
Because that would be, you know, the concerns of parental improvement for those people to talk to people. Because, again, we can't, or administration can't force a kid to go talk to a person like this. So, you know, I'm concerned about, you know, how to
You have to
establish
deal with
that.
confidentiality.
I don't think
That's what I'm saying.
There's a lot of the agencies and looking with contractual services and also looking into grant opportunities. I think that's
you
where
know,
it's at. I think
And
Stefan's
I'm
trying
hoping
to
we can get more.
emphasize the need. The need is there. We know that that's everywhere. I don't care where you'll go, you're gonna find a need. But I think we're better to look outside and see what services that we could get with the
Right, because-
expertise to come in and work with our counseling department.
I'm fine
Right.
not putting it in the budget. I just don't want
Yeah.
to lose sight of it.
Because the Birmingham group services the Valley schools, and I don't know, and again, I'm not saying any aspersions against anybody, but I'm wondering of the connect
He's talking
between
about
us
the
and the
need.
Birmingham
Right.
group. And also, you know, I accepted a position on the Milford Rape Crisis Committee, which doesn't do enough for Seymour, and I'm trying to push them to do more presentations for us.
It's important as
For
well.
our
They
kids.
came to us this last year and did a really nice job.
Yep.
Okay, so where do you stand with the amount of what you're asking? An ELL teacher, a classroom teacher, instructional coach?
I could take it, Dr. Compton.
Okay.
So if I could just summarize what I've heard, I'm working off of this document here that was presented to us for the budget. We are removing the security, the unarmed security officer. We are adding an ELL teacher. We are adding some kind of certified instructional support person at SMS. We've got that docked in for $113,861. We're adding a unified arts teacher at the Mount Elementary School. That's the same salary as the ELL teacher, which is the same salary as the SMS teacher that's already here. And we are adding a social worker to be shared at the, or to be focused on the elementary level at 103,609, which was from here. And if that is what everyone agrees on, then that's a 5.33% increase for a total dollar amount of $40,191,468.
Why don't you make that a motion?
Wait, before you do, I got 42,950,777. ELL, UA, instructional coach, social worker, or did you not include social worker?
Did you take out the
I
security?
included
Took out
social
the
worker,
security guard.
but my cell did not include, the formula didn't include that cell, so good catch.
Just get clarification so that when I have to.
We will when we pass it.
Yeah, exactly.
We're not there yet.
We're not there yet.
Let me check it.
So what do you have, Chris? What number?
I have 40,295,077.
Can you repeat that, please?
40,295,077, and that includes removing the security guard,
Right.
ELL,
Got that.
the unified arts, social worker, and the one coach.
And that percent is?
I don't know.
Hold on, I'll tell you
Oh,
in
is
a minute.
that Chris? Okay.
I don't care about percents. It's dollar amounts.
Well, are we gonna present a dollar amount?
It's this much more.
Oh, yeah, I didn't see that.
Yeah, it's more, that's,
Percent is, 381,000.
5.6%. Still not getting that same number. Hold on one second.
I used 108 for both ELL and the UA, 103,609 for the social worker,
Uh-huh.
and 113,861 for the coach.
And what's your total? 40,295,077?
40 million with an M.
Great, great. Okay, very good.
go
So that's
40
a, that's a 5.6% increase. I'd like to make a motion.
You have the floor.
I'd like to make a motion to submit to the town a 2024-2025 school board approved budget in the amount of $40,295,077, which is a 5.6% increase over last year.
Second.
Would you like me to itemize the things that we're adding, Chris?
No.
Okay.
No. Well, I
So we
should say
have,
no.
just to repeat back, we have a motion, send to the town, or to the Board of Finance, a budget of $40,295,077. Do I have a second? Second by Stefan. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? The motion passes 8-0-0.
Yes.
Would you like to do the honor? Let me just make sure we don't have.
What on? Oh, Ed, I would like to make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Ed, do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?